If you want to have zero risk and total control, you'll be left behind. All right. We've built a competent team that all trust each other, that communicates well and understands what we're doing, how we're going to do it, and how to communicate through it. They're going to go take disciplined initiative to carry that out. I can trust them to do that at a risk level that is acceptable to me, and I can accept that risk.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the Brainwave Exchange. I'm your host, Jason Davis Cook, joined, as always, by the immeasurable Anthony Torres and the rest of the Bit Hippie team as well. Anthony, how are you today?
Dude, this is such a great feeling to see so many faces here. We've been working on this for a long time, so I'm feeling great, excited to have everybody.
It is very cool. So if you haven't seen the last episode in sort of this series that we're doing, I recommend you go watch that because you'll understand who Mark is and a reintroduction to Michael. So we won't get into your backgrounds because we're going to force people to go watch the other episode and get those numbers up so they can figure out who you guys are. But Mark, Michael, welcome back. We're so blessed to have you here. Grateful that you're spending the time with us. How's it going today?
Thank you.
Great, Jason. Thanks for having us back, man. Appreciate it.
What I will say is that we are doing this series on sort of high performing teams. And so today we've got some more discussion on, I think we're talking about some culture attributes that are very important to kind of force us to be a high performing team. Is that right? Very cool. I'm going to turn the stage here over to you, Mark, so you can walk us through what those culture points are. And then I imagine we're going to go into a deeper discussion on each of those points. And I encourage everybody who's here to speak up with questions so we can have a really engaging conversation and build the team and the culture.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. Anthony, thanks for having me. So Anthony reached out to me and through Michael, and essentially he wanted to build the type of high performing and independent free thinking initiative, not just initiative taking, but initiative seeking team that the SEAL teams and the rest of the military has a reputation for. And based on that, we put together a program based on the Army's approach to leadership. It's called Mission Command. There are 7 principles to Mission Command, and the Army's entire leadership handbook is simply titled Mission Command, ADP 6-TAC-0, Mission Command. And who wants to guess how long this document is? The entire Army's handbook for leadership. How many pages is it?
Torn between wanting to go really high or really low.
Yep, same.
I'm going to go really low. I'm going to say it's 4 pages.
Anybody else?
All right, I'll go on the high end. Let's say 50.
It's 12 pages of content.
Okay.
It's 12 pages of content. So the Army listened. Who has master's degrees? Show of hand. All right. You know what they say about all the reading in grad school? It's only a lot if you do it. So the Army finally listened, and even though people go to grad school and all types of, leadership courses specifically for this and are assigned this, and they're given direct military orders to read it. It's still tough to get people to read. So they finally listened and they dropped it down to 12 pages. And as much as the Navy SEALs have going for them, they're very hesitant to actually codify a lot of their teachings and principles into what we call doctrine. They feel that I'm getting a lot of feedback. It's not from me. Anyway, okay, there we go. It went away. Whatever changed, that's what it was. But the Army is much, much bigger. It's, thousands of times the size of the entire SEAL community. So it's much more important to have all of that codified and documented. And they do a really good job of that in their publications. And they do a very good job of that through their postgraduate and other training programs. So I attended 2 of their the postgraduate training programs, Army Command General Staff Officer College and School of Advanced Military Studies. And both of those, they were heavy on doctrine. Is why I went there in the first place, was to get that, because the SEAL teams have got a lot of really good things going for them, but they don't do doctrine and that type of specific instruction very well. So I had to seek it out and moved to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas to do that, which is just as much fun as it sounds. So it's 7 degrees there right now. So happy to be out of there. So the people who do you think the U.S. Army based its entire Cold War military doctrine off of. So post World War II, we just won a sweeping victory. Who do you think we based? No dumb answers, no dumb guesses. Who do you think we based our entire military structure and doctrine off of, even down to a lot of our individual weapon systems? Who do you think we copied?
The Brits?
Nope. The Brits lost World War II, which is a separate rant and separate podcast. We could do a whole podcast on how the Brits lost World War II.
I don't know. I don't even have a guess.
Russians.
You would think. You would think we copied the Soviets. We would have been a lot better off had we copied the Soviets. We copied the Germans. So maybe someday I'll write a book about how the U.S. military is obsessed with what I call noble losers, right? For whatever reason, we U.S. Army, but military in general, it likes the Confederates and the Germans, and they're a bunch of noble losers, but they looked really good while they lost, and we based our doctrine off of them. They looked really good in their Hugo Boss uniforms. They felt really cool, outflanking everybody in their Panzers. For better or worse, we copied the German army of World War II for all of our doctrine, or nearly all of our army doctrine, at least, not so much our Air Force doctrine. But mission tactics was actually one of the better, if not the best things we stole from the German army. It was originally called, the Germans called it Oxford Taktik. Thankfully, we shortened it to mission tactics. It's a lot easier to say and spell. And the idea is that in the late 1930s, early 40s, the Germans developed Blitzkrieg based on their Panzer divisions, right? So Blitz, Lightning, Krieg, War. So it's this lightning war where it all depends on moving so quickly that the enemy doesn't know what's going on, doesn't know how to react, so they just completely fall apart and surrender. So basically, with Blitzkrieg in your Panzer divisions, what you do is you either make deep penetrations or deep encirclements, and you are highly, highly exposed during these deep penetrations or deep encirclements. And if your adversary has even a moment to compose themselves and realize what's going on, they would realize that you are extremely exposed, right? If you're punching deep, deep into enemy lines, so you've got an enemy line, you punch straight through it, and they're still super strong right here, but now you have tanks essentially in their backfield. And if you take a second and compose yourself, instead of saying, oh no, I need to retreat, you say, hold on, I'm still strong right here. All I have to do is I can outflank them and cut them off, and then they're done. So it all depends on acting so quickly and so decisively that they don't have time to get their wits about them and realize that they're actually in a decent position if they can compose themselves. So that relies on individuals down at the lowest possible level to be empowered to act quickly and decisively to maintain that momentum and maintain that advantage. Even now, it's very difficult, if not impossible, with modern satellite communications and GPS and satellite imagery to have the level of command and control to facilitate that type of blitzkrieg, that type of maneuver warfare at the pace that's required to have that psychological effect. I certainly couldn't do it in the early 90s. Communications just weren't there. So when the technology isn't there, you have to change the organization and the doctrine and the culture to make up for it. And what they did is they created this principle of mission tactics of empowering leaders at the lowest possible level to push the pace and achieve the organization's goals at a speed that kept them relevant and kept them safe. And hopefully you guys are already starting to draw the connections between that and, the modern tech industry or biotech or whatever industry you're in if you're listening on LinkedIn. And I'll take a second. I'll pause there for questions, comments.
I think I see the lines that are being drawn here, right? Like we as a sort of small, nimble organization need everybody to be able to think quickly and move quickly and decisively in order for us to both like accomplish the goals that we have set, but also react to changes in the overall environment, especially now with AI moving as fast as it is. If we're not in a position where any one of us can react and go where the market's moving to, then we're going to get left behind.
Exactly. It's a grow or die. You probably hear that a lot in business, right? Either grow or die. And in maneuver warfare and Oxford Taktik, it is, you need to advance or die, quite literally. And this is the doctrine. This is the organizational culture. This is the way of communicating that allows you to do so. And I'm excited to share that with you today and expand on it over future sessions.
So one comment, if everyone on the team doesn't have a sense of autonomy, I don't think the team can be cohesive and communicate well. And like the general sense of purpose and happiness and fulfillment from doing your job without autonomy isn't quite possible. So I think that's a relation as well.
Great point. Great point. I appreciate that. Okay. There are anything else? I really appreciate the engagement interaction. That's exactly what we want. This is part of building the type of trust and communication empowerment that we're looking for is this interaction here. So feel free to just interrupt at any point. No need to raise a hand. So there are 7 principles of mission command. Guess what some of them might be? If you've cheated and done some of the homework and looked them up, all the better. More power to you. Never fight fair. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
I think Anthony put them in the meeting invite for this. So
it should be easy, right?
So I'll go ahead and lay them out. So I've changed the order a little bit from what the Army lists, and I've broken them into 3 categories. So first category is build the team. Second category is communicate with the team. Third category is empower the team. So we could further simplify that to build, communicate, empower. All right. So build, communicate, empower. So under build the team, the first principle is competence. All right. So I'll just go through all of them and then so get set the broad framework and mutual understanding, and then we'll go back and dev out each one. So we've under build the team, we've got competence and mutual trust. And then under communicate with the team, we have shared understanding, commander's intent, and mission type orders. And then under empower the team, we have disciplined initiative and prudent risk acceptance. So one more time, competence, trust, shared understanding, commander's intent, mission orders, disciplined initiative, and prudent risk acceptance. And those are sequential. They all build on one another. And I put them in that order for a reason. So any questions so far? So first one is competence, and competence was actually the last one added. It was originally 6 principles of mission command, and it was the 7th one added. And it's because the foundation of all of mission command is mutual trust. And what's the foundation of mutual trust?
That's right.
Competence.
Yeah.
Competence.
It's
right?
funny that it was the last one added, but it's the first one that we need to have.
Yeah. And I think they went back and they realized, wait, there's this missing piece, right? We can't trust each other if we don't inherently trust that everyone is competent. That's both up and down the chain of command within an organization. It's 360. Everyone has to trust, and that trust is based on competence. So, as a team member, you're not going to be able to take initiative and go do what you think and feel and know is right if you don't have faith in your project manager, your boss, and their competence to see the goodness in what you're doing and to back you up. So, and as a leader, you're not going to be able to trust your team members to do what they need to do independently if you don't feel that they're competent.
So you're saying that trust is like the number one thing. Wouldn't trust be the hardest goal to achieve? Yeah.
Of course.
I'm just interested that it's like the number one thing, but you have to work towards it.
Mm-hmm. I'm usually good with movie quotes, but it's kind of the classic. I didn't say it'd be easy. I just said it'd be worth it. So none of this is easy. If this was easy, everyone would do it, right? Every culture would be amazing, would be awesome. Every workplace would be amazing to work at. Everyone would feel respected and trusted and empowered to take the initiative. Every military would be able to conduct blitzkrieg and have all of their junior officers and junior NCOs, make deep penetrations behind enemy lines without oversight, and it'd be awesome, right? But it's incredibly difficult, but it's worth it. And like you said, we're on point number 1, trust. And you've identified how difficult that is already, which is awesome. You're exactly correct. So do you have any thoughts on on trust and competence within the organization? You've shared with me that you feel that competence is very high. So we're off to a good start. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I think we might have talked about this in the last one where it's interesting that we have two different philosophies. We did a reading of a Netflix book that says basically no rules, rules, which actually kind of lines up with a 12-page doctrine, right? It's not 50 pages. And one of the things that they talk about in that book is a necessary prerequisite for success is high talent density, which is essentially competence. And then once you have that in place, then you can relax the reins a little bit because you brought on good people. And as I'm bringing it back to the dev shop and what we're doing, I think something that Jason and I have been talking about is what is the process for bringing on new people? How do we evaluate competence or talent density? And what is that? That's something I know that's important for us in like the early parts of this year.
D. Michael's
Awesome.
raised his hand.
So a question for you, Mark. I could imagine that there might be one relation between competence and trust is that even though you might be competent, you can recognize that you might not have full competence in something. And you want to be honest about it and get the help you might need to fill that gap. And that can also induce trust and also make sure things run smoothly, as opposed to pretending like you know it all and can do it all and then have some failures along the way.
Great point. I think what you're getting at, it sounds to me, is humility. So one of the best ways to build mutual trust is through humility and transparency about your shortcomings, your areas where you need improvement. And we could continue to dissect this almost indefinitely, right? So, okay, if we need trust, all right, what's the prerequisite for trust is competence. Well, what's the prerequisite for competence is training. All right, what's the prerequisite for training? All right, it's, self-awareness, the humility to say, hey, I need more training on this, right? There's also, so that's at the individual level. There's an organizational level of where you need clear expectations laid out. You need need to be built to train, or you need to recruit at such a level that everyone comes in pre-trained, which is expensive. It's like building a house, right? You could either pay quite a bit to get something that's move and ready, or you can get a little bit of a fixer-upper and fix it up yourself, train it in-house. And there are different methods, different benefits to both, especially for a startup. What are your thoughts on that, Michael? And we can keep going down from there, humility, self-awareness, and you need to be able to trust as an individual who is self-aware and humble and vulnerable, because it's a very vulnerable thing to do, to expose yourself and say, hey, I don't know how to do this. You need to have trust in the organization that they're not going to turn around and flame spray you or throw you under the bus or humiliate you. And that's, so this trust and competence, it's, like I said, it's 360. And it's throughout the organization. And when everyone gets it, when everyone's on the same page, you can really do some amazing things. Like historically, I don't want to say amazing, at least tactically impressive things were done when these principles were applied in combat. I'm hesitant to call them amazing, but they were impressive in their scale and outcome. Anthony, I wanted to give you a second to bring it together and apply it to the company if you want, or I can also keep moving.
Yeah, the phrase that came to mind a couple of times as you were talking about, dissecting this indefinitely and people being willing to acknowledge that they need support and training is psychological safety. And then I started thinking, what do I need to be doing as the owner of the business to provide psychological safety to the people on the team? And I suspect, I don't know if that is, we're still going further down the stack. I know when we talked earlier, yes, we mentioned we want to do the broad sweeps of like, here's the whole system from left to right. And then as we have the further conversations, we can go deeper on each specific topic. So Mark, I'm going to give you the choice, like, do you want to keep moving left to right? Do you want to keep going down? I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
This is, no, so that's, you're hitting on one of the principles of mission tactics, right? Maneuver warfare is it's completely open to whatever the terrain and the adversary, whatever opportunities you're presented with, right? You start with this broad goal in mind of, hey, we're here and we want to get to here, right? Or we're here and we want to get to here. And however you get there, just take the path of least resistance and fastest outcome. And we trust everyone on board to help us get there. And if we have to zigzag or anything else, that's perfectly fine. So we're zigzagging while we get towards the desired outcome, and I think that's cool. It's a lot more fun that way anyway. So this is, maneuver warfare as opposed to trench warfare, and trench warfare isn't fun. There's nothing cool about that. So what was coming up for me is, you kept on talking about, or you mentioned a couple times, the talent density, right? And part of density is, a big part of density is the denominator, right? So if you have a large denominator, it gets tougher to be dense, right? So you've got your talent, and then divided by the number of people in the denominator. Y'all are what, a half dozen people about, plus or minus? So that's a great opportunity, right? You stay very talent dense there. And as things grow and scale, it gets more difficult to maintain that density. And then you get to be somewhere like Netflix, as you mentioned, or Google, where in order to maintain that high talent density at scale, you have to pay for it. You got to pay a lot. And it's usually upfront fixed rather than the way it is with y'all, where it is more performance based and more of a profit sharing model. And there's pros and cons to each, but I think it's really exciting to be part of a small, flat, fast organization where everyone can be very high talent, very high motivation, and very high reward, right? It's tied closely to your performance. And those are the kind of organizations I've always strived to be a part of. That's why I joined the SEAL teams instead of big Army, but still recognize the value in Army training and doctrine and organization. So sought them out for training. But this is, I think it's all super applicable to what y'all are doing and the culture you're building. So you can stay nimble and flat and fast and work towards these common goals together.
I
Awesome.
enjoy
So
getting to know
we're
everybody
a third of the way through.
personally. Sorry for interrupting. It's just, I've worked at the big companies before, and they're super impersonal, right? And they're super process heavy. And even sometimes you're like, I know I'm going to stub my toe on this thing because I have to go through this process, and everybody just accepts that that's okay, right? And so staying lean and nimble is really
Awesome.
quite nice. Yeah.
Okay, so getting back to our framework, right? We've got build the team, communicate with the team, empower the team. We just covered build the team. Any questions or comments there before we move to communicate with the team? So we've got 3 principles within communicate with the team: shared understanding, commander's intent, and mission type orders. So first one, again, these are sequential and they all build on each other. Each one's a prerequisite for the next. So we had competence, which is a prerequisite for trust. Trust is a prerequisite for good communication and shared understanding. So shared understanding is, we touched on it a bit earlier. It's like, hey, we are here. The enemy's line begins here, and we want to end up far past the enemy's line, somewhere around here, in a way that compels our adversary to abandon their fortified positions and either retreat or surrender. In a way, it's kind of the same thing, and that can easily apply to business. Hey, we're here. The competition is here. The customers are here. However, we need to get there, right? We're trying to get somewhere over here. This is the promised land. This is profit. This is the exit that we all share in. And, once that happens, we're all set, and all of our kids get to go to private school forever, and everyone lives happily ever after. And what that looks like, don't know. In a way, we don't care, because we trust everyone to work within this shared understanding. And there are several elements to an effective shared understanding. The first one is the goal, right? The destination. And that's relatively easy, right? It could be, hey, we're trying to get to the adversary's supply depots or command posts or capital, or trying to get to this port. Anthony, over.
I'm excited to say that literally on Tuesday of this past Tuesday, we did an OKR exercise. And one of the things that I did at the beginning of that was I restated the business objective. This is what I'm after. These are what the numbers need to look like. And because I trust the team, I can share, here's exactly what I'm trying to do. Help me get there. So I think I'm doing some small part of this shared understanding. And I'll be curious to hear
Perfect.
Yeah, like just what else feeds into it beyond this is the, like, I'm going to use the air quotes North Star. Is that enough? How often we revisit this topic? Like, just what are your thoughts on that?
Perfect. That's awesome, right? That's probably the most important part. It's certainly the first part of a shared understanding, is understanding the goal and the outcome, the objective. Within that, you have to know your organization's strengths and limitations, right? And especially relative to the environment, right? So if we're taking it back to military examples, like, okay, our environment, we've got open plains here, we've got forests here, and we've got mountains here. We are Panzer division, right? We're good in open fields, and we have to go through forests. We can. It's not ideal. We definitely can't go through mountains. If it's time to go through mountains, we need to request support separate entities and bring them in. Michael.
Yeah, I'm just curious on like the agreements around what the intent is, where we're heading. And I'm not being critical of you, Anthony, but just because something's missaid doesn't mean it's understood. And I mean, I see this all the time. And as a marriage therapist, like, so how do you recommend that we all have the same understanding, and it's understood that we have the same understanding? How's that done?
Is that for
Are
me
you
or
asking
for
me?
Anthony?
Okay, so I'll take a crack at this. One of the things that, I started that conversation, this OKR meeting, our goal meeting, with what I'm after, and the team came with their own objectives and said, this is what I want to do in service of this document that I started. So this is each individual taking accountability and ownership of a piece of the North Star. Haven't done this yet, but we'll put the monthly follow-up so we can check to see, this is what we said was important in January. In February, is this still important? Has the landscape changed on us, right? Have the environmental conditions changed? But when we go through each person's goals, we did this all in one meeting at the same time, and people can ask questions about what other people wrote. I encouraged everybody. I was like, hey, look for where there are opportunities for 2 or more people to partner up. And that is my first attempt at making sure that we all understand the same thing and what needs to be done to get there.
Awesome. I would say the way being able to condense your, as you put it, your North Star, your objective down to a bumper sticker, ideally a catchy one. It may sound silly, but it's important. So being able to break mission command down to build, communicate, empower. Like you could, if your goal over the next quarter was to do nothing but build an organizational culture around, the principles of mission command where everyone is empowered, you could start and end every meeting with, hey, remember everyone, we're here to build, communicate, and empower, right? Until everyone is just thinking that in their sleep. And every time they see your face pop up on a Zoom call or on a text message or a phone call, they see Anthony's face and they immediately think build, communicate, empower, right? And then it's embedded in part of the organization. And then as Michael was saying, it's truly understood, and not just understood, but embraced and adopted and then actioned. There's a big delta between understanding and an action. And there's even a big delta between action and habit. So there's something has to be understood, then it has to become part of the culture before it's actioned, and then it needs to be actioned repeatedly and habitually before it becomes habit and just second nature. So it might sound silly, it might feel silly at first, but there's a reason that organizations, sports teams, militaries, high-performing teams in general have certain principles that they just circle back to and overemphasize repeatedly. It works. And something's not silly if it works.
That's great. Makes a ton of sense.
So Anthony,
Mark, just a question.
Yeah,
You mentioned the actions, and what about because the goal of the action is the outcome. So how you make sure that you're doing the right actions, because you need to get somewhere, like you're doing everything because of the outcome at the end of the day. What are your thoughts about that?
great question. Thank you. So that's why it's important to understand the organizations, as we're discussing their strengths and limitations. So if you are a Panzer division, hey, we're strong here. Yes, we're open to other opportunities, but we're really looking for opportunities within our band of expertise and capabilities. Now, another option might open up, and this will be part of mission orders that we'll get to later and really expand on in future talks. But part of the commander's intent, mutual understanding, shared trust is you have to have, it's like bowling with bumpers on, right? A good commander, a good leader will put certain bumpers up, certain left and right lateral limits, as we call them, for their subordinates, their team members to operate within. Saying, hey, within these conditions, within this box, right? Whether it's a geographic box, whether it's a budget box, whether it's a capabilities box, within this box, you have free reign to get from here to here. And if you need help, call me. If there's something outside this box that you think helps gets us here cheaper, faster, better, call me. And other than that, update me when you can. I trust you to go forth and aggressively do great things within these lanes that are based on our capabilities, our funding, our timelines, our environment, and what other business units are doing parallel to us. And one of the benefits of being a smaller company is you don't have a lot of different business units, but you still want to think about ways, just like different military units that have their own slice of the battle space. It's similar with business units, right? They should be mutually supporting, but they very much have their own lanes. You don't want one business unit venturing too far into another business unit's lane. And if that's going to happen, it requires coordination. You absolutely want your different business units mutually supporting and working together without stepping on each other or duplicating efforts or having some friendly fire, which happens. Good disaggregated subordinate initiative requires clear lanes and guidance set by leaders. Otherwise, it's just a free for all. And then no one's happy, right? It's a free for all. There's friendly fire, duplicated effort, wasted effort. And then the boss comes back. He's like, oh, I trusted you guys. And this is what I get for trusting you. No more trust. I'm pulling it all back. And then no one's happy, right? And then like, hey, we tried it. It didn't work. We're never trying that again. We're going back to what we know works, which is command and control. I command, I control, you listen, you follow, and then you get burnt out and go somewhere else in 18 months. And that's not what anyone at this organization wants. Thank you for that. Great addition. So that's shared understanding. So commander's intent is the next principle within communicate with the team. And we hit on it a bit already. So a big part of the shared understanding. So you have to understand the environment, understand our own capabilities, understand competitors' capabilities, understand the customer's needs, and all these same principles apply whether it's to military operation or to a business. You would just swap out the customer and the competition for different placeholders. Same with the environment, same with the weather, essentially the climate, right? We talk about different economic climates, different business climates, right? There's different geographic climates and weather patterns that affect operations and therefore need to affect planning and communication and execution. So a huge part of shared understanding is not just that understanding of those elements that I just reiterated, but also commander's intent, right? And we talked about that a bit already. Our intent is to reach this objective in order to have this effect on our customer, on our competition, on the environment, and be able to have this effect on our organization, on our partners, and our bottom line and our goals. And again, you just insert different placeholders for military operation or a tech startup. Michael, looks like you're about to hop in. Go for it.
Actually, yeah, I mean, it's actually like back to some of your research there, direct communication and how challenging that actually is. And, if we have some time, I'd like for you to address that because, a lot of people can get defended or he's very egoic or, whatever word you want to use. And aren't necessarily curious and don't necessarily ask good, powerful questions. And that could cause a lot of problems down the road, at least some miscommunication or poor communication. At some point, you could highlight, come speak to what reaches there.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of feedback, but I think I understood that at some point you want to work towards what Lisa said of the importance of communication. And honestly, you're the expert on communications. I love to work with you more on that, and I encourage you to chime in as well. But certainly, as we get into the follow-on discussions, especially on the communication block, will definitely dive more deeply into that. But the major component of commander's intent is sharing the desired outcome, our own capabilities, the competition's capabilities, where we anticipate different risks, different opportunities, different friction points, and then helping the whole team understand that so they could best seek out, find, and then exploit and capitalize on the opportunities that they find within those bumpers that we talked about. All right, big part of so that's commander's intent. So questions there before we move on to mission type orders. We cover that briefly.
Another question: do the SEALs they have like a list of all of their capabilities? How does that work? Like how they know what they can do and what are the constraints of their own capabilities?
Yeah, that's the problem with SEALs, is that we think we can do anything and everything, and that's the worst part of SEALs is, we can do this can-do attitude that we can do anything and everything. There's goodness there, but there's also some danger there. But we've done a better job, especially over the last 20 years, of saying, hey, these are our core competencies. These are our core skill sets. Employ us within these. We've not done that in the past. There are a lot of case studies where that has gone poorly. So one of those was Operation Just Cause, which was the invasion of Panama. That went poorly. So one of the objectives that SEALs were tasked with was Patia Airfield. So basically there was a small private airfield where there were private jets and aircraft, and SEALs were tasked with seizing that airfield and preventing it from being used by high-level individuals to escape. That's not a mission that should have gone to SEALs. That should have gone to Rangers. And SEALs, they were just hesitant to say, like we were talking about earlier, having the self-awareness and the humility and also the trust in their superiors to say, hey, I can do this if you need me to, but this isn't within my realm of core capabilities. We either need more time to train on this, or I would suggest having someone else who is more qualified, and this is one of their core competencies, to give this mission to them. But it's kind of the military equivalent of career suicide back then. It's a good problem to have, but they're just in a military sense. This might sound weird, but there wasn't a lot of work to go around back then. And it might sound silly, but people in the military, especially special operations, they want to go get into the fight. They want to be employed. They do a lot of training, make a lot of sacrifices to go add value at some point. And it's the right thing to do, but it's almost not, it almost wasn't reasonable to expect someone to say, hey, no, thank you for finally putting me in, coach, in the Super Bowl, but I don't feel that we're up to this. If you're in the Super Bowl and you're on the final drive to win the game and coach calls your number, so like, hey, I need you to go run this play and you're going to win the game for us. Like, you're not going to say, oh, coach, I actually don't feel up to doing that. Maybe you should put the other running back in. That's just not going to happen, even if that's the right thing to do. And it takes a lot of trust within, up and down the whole organization to be able to say, hey, sir, thank you, but I don't think we're the right ones to do this. Please don't let this negatively impact the next time you're thinking of calling my number and putting me in, but we're not the right choice for this. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. Multiple SEALs died. Another one was paralyzed. It wasn't good. And and something similar happened in Grenada. Multiple SEALs drowned, which should just never happen. Right. There were mistakes in planning where they were supposed to free fall in onto some boats and then go take the boats in up the time zones. They were supposed to jump in as the sun was going down, said it was already dark. The sea state wasn't much higher than it was supposed to be. So they jumped into a severe sea state after dark, and multiple SEALs drowned because they didn't feel that they could call back to headquarters and say, hey, I know you needed me to do this thing. I know that if I say no, I might not get another chance to be cool, and you may never call my number ever again. But if we do this, we risk, guys dying. And there was just this can-do attitude where it's like, hey, we're frogmen. Let's go get froggy. And they jumped anyway, and multiple guys died. There's, the whole Lone Survivor movie. We do a whole case study on the exact same thing. Hey, there were a lot of things that should have been worked out in mission planning. They should have gone back and said, hey, this isn't appropriate. We need a bigger force package, so on and so forth. And they didn't do that. And then it spiraled into the catastrophe that was. So it's a great question, right? And it gets back to what we're talking about earlier. You need the team with competence and trust, both up and down the chain of command. You need to trust that your leadership is competent and professional enough to not smash you when you say, hey, this is outside of our lane. The leadership needs to have the trust in their subordinates and the team members that they're competent enough to speak up when that happens, and that they actually are competent in the other things. So you do give them another chance later, just sideline them indefinitely or fire them because they did the right thing and spoke up and said, hey, this is outside of our lane. This is outside of our capabilities. Thank you. But in order for me to execute this, I'm either going to need more time, more support, more resources, or you should outsource this to someone else. And that's tough to do. It's what building a culture of trust and effectiveness is all about. There's going to be a common thread throughout all this. It's tough, but it's worth it.
I know that we're only about halfway through these points, but I know we're running up on time here. We've got about 2 minutes left in this session. So I think it might be worth.
Mission orders, we'll go into that in more detail, but it's just setting those bumpers, those expectations, those go, no-go criterias, the points where like, hey, this is where you need to call back to me. This is where you're cleared hot to just push as hard and fast as you can, and then empower the teams. So disciplined initiative and prudent risk acceptance. So you guys have probably all seen the YouTube videos back, probably like 15 years ago now, of like Leroy Jenkins.
Yes.
So that was Leroy Jenkins was taking the initiative, right? He was pushing forward. Heinz Guderian would have been proud of Leroy just taking the initiative and sending it, but that wasn't disciplined initiative, right? So you can only have disciplined initiative with shared understanding and within the commander's intent and those bumpers, those boundaries that should have been established during commander's intent, mission orders, and then prudent risk acceptance. And this is probably the biggest thing, right? As leaders, we don't want to risk anything, right? And the way you risk nothing is by controlling everything. And you can do that. That's a method, but there's no growth. There's certainly no speed there. And especially in the modern tech environment or the modern military environment, if you want to have zero risk and total control, you'll be left behind. And it's basically this entire system is a way of buying down risk to an acceptable level so that leaders can accept that risk. All right. We've built a competent team that all trust each other, that communicates well and understands what we're doing, how we're going to do it, and how to communicate through it. They're going to go take disciplined initiative to carry that out. I can trust them to do that at a risk level that is acceptable to me, and I can accept that risk because it's no longer just risk. It's now prudent and a mitigated risk, and I can accept prudent and mitigated risk as a leader, as a business owner, as an investor, as someone who's looking to partner with another company that's doing something like this. Okay, it's risky, but it's mitigated risk, it's prudent risk, and I can accept that.
This is great. This is exactly where I hope to be, where the team is taking smart risks and feels empowered to do so. So I'm really excited that, this was the first part of a longer program. We'll spend more time on each of these topics, and we'll share, I'm excited to share what we learn with anybody who wants to listen.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Michael, for your time again today. And we absolutely look forward to the continuing of these sessions and getting real deep into each of these points. And I know that we'll take a lot of value out of it. And I just hope that anybody listening and following along will also get value and bring that into their own organizations and own lives as well.
I appreciate
Thank
the
you both again.
discussion and engagement as well. That's what makes this so special. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks for listening, everybody. And until next time, be well.